Hey guys, welcome back. My name is Peter. Today I want to talk to you about the idea of crunch in video games in particular, or should we say the fallacy of crunch, and maybe share a couple of crunch stories. So let's get right into it. Okay, so crunch. If you're in software development, in particularly, if you've ever built video games, you've heard of the phrase crunch. You may have actually done the crunch or been part of that whole process. And what the idea behind it is that the team gets together and you stick it out for a weekend or an all-nighter. Get some pizza, maybe get some Subway, get some takeaway food, eat in, play some table tennis in the office if you've got a table tennis table, or whatever you're doing, and just caffeinate yourself up and get all the coding done that you can and art done that you can, and then that's it. The game's finished. It's released. It's done. And come Monday, you've pushed the release out the door, and your crunch is finished, and you've got a video game or a software product out. And the very fallacy of that whole process is that you're going to get something out after crunch finishes. And we did this in one of the main video games company that I started working in. I worked there for about 7-8 years, and I think the first time I did crunch was on a video game on the Game Boy Color that was called Duke Nukem. You've heard of Duke Nukem. We did the Game Boy Color version of it, and it was a great game, fantastic product. I did a lot of work on it. I remember it was quite exciting to add little bits and pieces to it, working on the game. And we had one crunch session, and it was like, well, let's do this. I remember I think at 18 at the time, and I really honestly thought that at the end of the crunch session, we're going to get all this done. We're going to finish the game. We're going to release it. All we need to do is just work all night. And there were so many problems with that. And so many problems that I found out, working through these kind of, these all-nighters, is that you really end up not getting anywhere, and that you really don't add to the project by doing this. In fact, in more situations than not, you end up causing more damage, and so much stuff ends up dragging out because of this. And there are a few reasons, and one is the idea that you can spend all night when you're exhausted mentally after a full day's work to create. You can, when you're young, you still create things and still write things, but your thought process and the approach to doing things becomes scattered. And there are studies that talk about the idea of, you shouldn't drive when, you haven't slept. So if you can't drive, why should you be writing code for something that requires, cognitive processes, needs critical thinking skills? So the idea there that the crunch will help you get through whatever bugs you need in a short period of time is also a fallacy, because you don't necessarily improve the rate at which you fix things. And if you're exhausted, then you're really not gonna, you might fix one or two issues, but you could have done them much quicker if you just slept the night before and tried to relax and got them done the next day. And a lot of this comes down to I think maybe the culture, but also the management time frames that are needed to get things done. That's not to say in certain situations in certain environments you can't push yourself that little bit harder to get something done, but in terms of software development, it really isn't the right approach. There are other situations where I have done all-nighters and prepared for them, but they haven't been software engineering. They've been more having to stay up to deal with product launches, or to deal with events, or to manage teams late in the night that you need to stay up. But you kind of manage your time, and you kind of focus on that period of time as being something that you're only going to do once. But what happens with crunch is you do it again and again and again. And the reason you do it again and again and again is because the cognitive thinking that you need to get it done doesn't really achieve the goals, and so that you don't really help yourself in the time frame. But the exhaustion means that the next day you're more exhausted. So you end up causing more problems the next day and the day after as you try to recoup your cognitive abilities through the lack of sleep. And that's the fallacy, is that crunch will help you achieve your goal short term or long term in a quick period of time, and that's not going to happen. In my experience, it's never happened. And there are a lot of people out there. Dave Farley has great channels, and Uncle Bob, who, if you don't know about him, he's a great speaker, and he's got a lot of books out. Talk a lot about strategies in being able to create software that is built properly, has been tested properly, is architected properly in a way that you don't need to put yourself in a situation where you think you need to do crunch to get through the project. And in fact, at the point where you're running out of time, and it's when you really need to try and plan and think about how you're going to structure your work in a way where you have to get the most important things done in a priority, not trying to get everything done quickly. That shouldn't be the decision process that goes on. It should be about planning and preparation, because you may not achieve everything you want by a certain date. So you have to work on the things that are important and cut the slack where you need to. And with software, you can get away with it, because you can communicate with your audience, with your customers, that, okay, we have this done, this is what's going to be released, we will add the rest at a later date. Especially in modern day software, you can roll out releases. And so this idea of crunch, really, I don't know if it happens so much anymore in the games industry. I haven't seen it so much, especially with the people that I've worked with, the experienced developers. Maybe in some of the big studios it still happens. Let me know in the comments if you've had to do crunch recently. That would be really interesting to know. So guys, that's my video for today about crunch. And now, with the follow-up of the previous video, we were talking. I mentioned that we would be creating a product and we'd start rolling that out. So the idea that's coming up, and I'll talk about it in the next video in 2 weeks, is that we're going to create a game. I've been working on this story, this world, for this video game since I was 17, 16, 15, I think 15, 16, somewhere around there. And now I think is a good time to start building like an indie game. And these videos, I'm going to actually communicate the whole process. So we're going to be creating a video games company, and we're going to be creating a video game as a product of that company. So I'm really interested to share all that process with you guys. I think I'm just sort of starting to put the ideas together of how to roll this out, and how to structure the videos. We're going to go through the whole process of every part of it. So guys, thanks for listening, and I hope you enjoyed my take on the idea of crunch, and I'll see you at the next video. Bye.